This episode is in collaboration with Delhi Design Festival Conference organized by USID Foundation from 23rd to 25th of Feb at the Indian Habitat Center, New Delhi. Be a part of engaging conversations around design, cities, and citizens. Witness how design can manifest in smart cities and deliver a sustainable urban experience to its citizens. For more details, link also given in the description below. Stay tuned for Delhi Design Festival 23rd to 25th of Feb, Indian Habitat Center, New Delhi. And now today's show.
Welcome to Audio Gyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
Today I have Sumantra Mukherjee with us on AudioGAN. Sumantra is a trained painter and his primary area of practice concentrates on portrait, figurative imaginary of the contemporary cultural influx in today's world, colourful and whimsical. He works out of Kolkata. In Kolkata, post-colonial is not a theory but a fact of daily life. So as a draftsman, he responds to such situations through wall and street painting, sculpture, and design. I briefly went through his work and it's just amazing. Thank you, Sumantra, for giving us your time and welcome to AudioGAN.
Hey, thank you, Kedar. It's my pleasure.
So today we'll try and understand the landscape of arts in areas of Kolkata where you primarily work, and also various aspects of the huge body of work you have done so far. So I'll start off with my first question, which is I believe every art form has a subtext, like an underlying message to it. So how can one read what's going on in a painter's mind? Because like I want to understand, is it really critical for a painter to always have a subtext? What is the process that you work with while working on a project? Are you conscious enough to communicate a subtext in your work?
A painter starts off with a criticality of understanding the medium. And the medium plays a most important role to at least create an imagery. In the same time, you have to handle so many mediums, the kind of draftsmanship you need to introduce a vocabulary so that it can communicate. So it's a longer journey. I'm not disrespecting the other media, the other forms, but at the same time, this media of painting takes a lot of time from you to really activate the energy that is to be shown through the media you are practicing with. So it's a long academical process and a kind of grammatical process, I would say. Yeah, I was taking it a bit back longer when a painter is anyone who is painting. So if I go to that basic level that anyone is a painter, in that context, the imagery comes to the content of that particular image or the painting. Now, painting is something that the human nature loves to do. At the same time, the painting has to be done with a certain kind of medium, which is introduced through brush and paint and many more. Powder to many things. So that needs to be very much accustomed to you so that you can be able to comment on the exact methodology that you need. So that methodology takes some time to develop. So it is not always that a painter must have a subtext. An image is more important then. And then when you are very, very easy with a certain kind of form and certain kind of media, then you comment. And the comment comes up with a sensibility of how you see the society with. So it takes some time for a painter. But at the same time, if I draw a landscape, at this age when it's always like superfluous, it's like moving up, and I can draw, I'm drawing a pleasurable landscape. That also is a political statement or a political decision to draw a landscape at this age when everything is moving like vertical. So it depends. It completely depends. And the narrative can be very blatant, can be very bland. At the same time, it needs a research to understand a painter. I am a simple painter. I'm very illustrative in my nature of thinking and my nature of seeing things and all. So there are major painters, who can be very simple, but their thought processes are more critical and understanding them is complex.
Mm-hmm. You just now mentioned that where everything is going vertical. What makes you say that?
The way that we are being projected to Vikas and progress.
Okay, in at a society level, you're saying.
Yeah, majorly, because when you want to understand the subtext, you should be open up to a wider variety of it.
So you're saying that it needs a thorough understanding of the society you live in order to communicate that subtext.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are influences. You are not beyond that. I mean, there are influences. Then I mean, influences from the basic level to the very complex level to the very political level. There are certain influences that affect you. And when you respond to it, it is not decorative. I mean, painting supposedly is kind of, to a very level, is like fancy, taken as fancy and taken as a thing that you do, which is bound to be decorative and which is bound to be beautiful. And then when you really practice a medium for a certain amount of time, then you realize there are certain things that you want to also achieve, or right to, I mean, the right to communicate, the right freedom of speech, etc. That gets involved to the whole process, and that is when you become subversive, and that is when you comment, and your commentary can be not always politically correct.
Yeah, and like I would like to know also what kind of work you're doing exactly in Kolkata, which helps you communicate now that you have like to a certain extent mastered the medium. You have certain thoughts to be expressed through your work. So how does Kolkata as a place enrich that?
Well, you see, I have not mastered any medium so far. I am interested in every medium. I fall in love with any medium. And I try to explore it as much as possible, you know. I'm just a painter, a simple one. I mean, to the very basic level, I would say, honestly speaking. I miss my student days. And this is how my practice also evolves, you know. I'm not rigid in a way that I don't like, I only believe in orthodox traditional medium and I don't believe in the new media and all. I believe them. You know, at the same time, my limitation of practice is based on certain mediums which can be associated to crafts, I would say. Like painting, you know, I like painting in charcoal or drawing in charcoal, like, I mean, doing street graffitis and all. Kolkata as a place has a, I mean, socially speaking or politically speaking in a way, has a possibility where there is a coexistence of a grand variety of things. Like still, I mean, it's India, I'm not talking West. We still can see a master cobbler around us. And we can get challenged to his mastery. When there is Adidas and other companies around. When there is a kind of availability of use and throw and the nexus has gone like, I use this and I throw it and I buy a new one and still there is a cobbler. And still there is a person who is making a roti in front of you and making a perfect circle. It looks like a moon. So, you know, I mean, these funny things kind of create a situation where you can really practice from a very basic point of view. And I believe that Kolkata also exists in a way that the still old school practices of printing media, which I often use, like lithography and all, they still exist. I mean, there are places like Shialda where you can find very affordably to print a book with calligraphy, and if not a digital media. At the same time, the digital media have encroached and there are flex and banners and etc. been printed in digital media, but at the same time, block printing through a treadle machine or a throttle machine, which was introduced back in the 18th century, still does exist. And there are people who are involved in the process, printing not really publication or books today, but printing packets, plastic packets, to hold on to stuff, and with a company name being printed on these packets with a block printed media. The block print is made of lead with an etching process, or it's a wood block which has been carved out and which can be chronologically dated back and been seen as the Bortola woodcut publication that has been produced in between the colonial era, and when the form was like an Eastern and the Western mix, and that was the third kind of form which is called Bortola woodcut. So these can be related if you can see and if you can research as a visual practitioner. But they still coexist. I mean, there are certain level of coexistence and tolerance, I would say, that still prevails in Kolkata. And so working in Kolkata or connecting to Kolkata is very normal for me because I stayed here. I mean, I'm from the suburbs. I stayed here during my academical times. I was more of a cricketer once, and I used to travel in Kolkata early in the morning and be there and seeing the fun of it. I mean, then if you expand a bit beyond my practice of painting, there are like performances that happens every day. You have viewers. You scribble on the road and you have 100 viewers around you. So you already have an audience. There is no question that it's an elitist mode of audience, or there is nothing like that. So you have an audience for your work, or you have an audience for and an acceptance at the same time. So Kolkata has that thing where you can practice. And it has a long lineage of political graffiti, where people were subversive. There are a lot of poets who have been subversive, who have been politically incorrect sometimes and correct sometimes. At the same time, I mean, it was for a long time the cultural capital which I deny it is now. Because, yeah, I mean, things have changed a bit. So the practice is there, the viewership is there, the craft is there.
Yeah, I'm personally fascinated with Kolkata. I want to visit. I want to be there sometime.
Please do
But
come back.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So just now you mentioned that there is painting happening on the streets as well. So can you tell us like some significance about street painting, especially on the roads in Kolkata or anywhere for that matter? Like how does it prove to be a very strong medium to communicate certain things?
Well, I had a very personal experience in this case. I mean, when in my early stages of my practice, or not of my practice, I will be honest on this. Traveling on a bus, I see a person scribbling on the road with a sign like "Help me," and there is a Mother Teresa-like looking figure, which he has drawn on the footpath, I mean, on the pavement, with chalk and charcoal. Supposedly, that man is to be known as a kind of a narcotic person, so he's making money for narcotics. That's what the usual popular saying. And he is drawing something like a kind of a religious vocabulary. At the same time, resembling, I mean, the person whom the Jesus is represented by looks like Shah Rukh Khan. I mean, we are in a gel like this. We have paratha with chili chicken. I mean, I think we are the best place here, not only Kolkata, I would speak about the border of India. We have been in a taste of this post-colonial thing, which is a kind of a gel of so many things together. We have an acceptance and a tolerance, which Kolkata, because I had practiced there, I am able to see it. And that's being humble on it. I mean, so, this street painting thing, and there are many viewers alongside this particular person who I was referring to, who is like drawing and scribbling on this, romantically speaking, on this pavement. And there are people around to catch a bus, and then the bus comes over, and the spectators change, and there is a policeman who wants to fiddle around with this guy, move him away. Then again, what happens? I go for this particular practice. The moment I was like practicing for a long time with this orthodox media. I'm orthodox myself in a way. Then I was happy painting in my studio. Happy painting in my studio with oil, with characters, with portraits of my friends, because I believe that the studio of an artist is also falls in a public domain, where the stories come out from the atmosphere from where you live in. I close the door and I paint, but at the same time, the public memory or the public vocabulary is always there with you if you are not absent from it, or if you are not elite from it. So I have this thing completely initiated because we had a separation. I mean, the painters are separated from the sculptors are separated from performers, the performers are separated from the theater practitioners are separated from the literature people. So this nexus kind of, I didn't believe in this. I am accustomed to meeting people from different genre, if not cultural also, and it's not interested in art practice. Being a painter, good for nothing, being a painter, answering questions that you're good for nothing, made me meet a lot of people. At the same time, my practice evolved in the studio, and then we collaborated, me and a friend of mine called Tawfiq Riaz, we collaborated for a performance art festival, self-initiated or artist-initiated, not supported by the government or not supported by a cliche gallery. So then we needed funds. So to be very honest, Kedar, I'm trying to be the most honest in this case. Then I always wanted to paint on the pavements, on the street, because at that time in Kolkata, there were a few Western artists who came down to do graffiti and to do street art in Kolkata. But I felt that it was kind of a marathon that they were doing, and they wanted to introduce this 3D kind of art in the streets, which I often see that is also there in Bangalore and many other places being practiced and being popularized. Because you can see it through a phone, and from a particular point of view, you can enjoy that artwork to be third dimensional or three dimensional with a depth, like a street going in depth, and there is fire in the street, and there is somebody with the imagery, different kind of imagery, which relates you through an illusion. At the same time, the Indian sense of visual, I would say, is not only about creating an illusion, but it is more important in iconography. It's more important to communicate. It's more important in the participatory sector. How you make them participate. So my issue, and me and Tawfiq, we started off painting, and then we gathered a lot of friends along. Whom we didn't ever met. And some are a few policemen who wanted to scout us away, but again they joined us. So in Kolkata, like a month in 2014 December, we started off with a project called KIPAF, Kolkata Performance Art Festival, and then where it was a necessary point to collect funds, and from where to get funds we begged. We begged in the same fashion as the person who was drawing, I referred before, was also begging in a way. Help me was assigned to help him. And we didn't write the help me, but we did provocatively draw certain things, which arises question at a certain time. People interacted with us, and then we had to speak out what is performance art. And to the public, when you speak about performance art, if you speak about painting also, it becomes bizarre. So in that process, we collected a lot of information. We talked to people. Our throats were drenched, and we had to talk to people and collect funds. At the same time, we were drawing, and it was completely a participation from where people could have entered from any point and just scribbled a few things, and their hands were dirty with paint, and they wanted to go back to their home with their dirty painted hands. And I see the fun that people still enjoy painting, which in a very complex question in the day-to-day, painting has taken a back seat. It's video art, it's 3D art, it's activism, and many other things that caught up to high art. And painting was failing in the galleries center, I would say. In that sense, it gave me the belief that, you see, it's a basic structure. So painting can evoke anything. It can evoke a discourse. It has a possibility to be subversive. It has a possibility to connect. It has a possibility to initiate a conversation. So that's how it evolved. It evolved. It's still existing. As like a chimpanzee does exist, and human beings have evolved. It's a coexistence again, So the whole theory where painting was taking a backseat, not only in Kolkata, I believe, in everywhere, was like irritating. So it gave me a belief back again that painting has an initial connect to human understanding. So I painted a few things. I painted 42 works of mine, which were like quite large in Kolkata. Every evening we used to go out. Nothing very special, very basic, chalk and charcoal. And we went around, we painted, we collected a few friends back with us, and we had chai. Yeah, that was it. Painting just on the floor, scribbling, and that was fun. And I have a collective called Sunny Dewal. Sunny is my nickname. And Sunny Dewal is a collaborative, it's a very loose collaborative where people come in and go out often. So we often do posters, often do floor paintings like this, often do paint on walls.
Yeah, very beautiful, and thoroughly inspiring. Yeah. Actually, I'll slightly change tracks here, and we'll speak something about your work overall. And whatever I have, like, even if you do a Google search of your name, we see a lot of faces. So I was just curious to understand what's your like fascination with faces. Your work deals with a lot of abstract faces, right? So I wanted to know what goes behind that.
Yeah, I'm always keen in drawing portraits, and the portraits which I was trained to draw in Government College of Art and Crafts is a very European schooling, which I also used to love, and I still love it. Painting in oil directly from someone, and you know what? I was quite well, if not very well, quite well in being able to put the highlight in the perfect place in the nose, so that the nose exactly knows if it is Imran Khan or if it is me, in that way. So I was able to do all these things. But at the same point, I used to mix with the models who used to sit along with us, and I had to lunch with them. And the stories that they had to tell evoked me. Where does these stories get involved into the portraiture that I'm doing in the class? These stories have been missed, and that's the reason I wanted to build in those stories. And how do I build in those stories was a kind of journey that I had. And the journey was not really appreciated in my academics. I was thrown out from college after the fifth year. I was not allowed into the master's degree. I had a hat trick of not getting my master's degree in Government College of Art and Craft, where I was the first plus first for 5 years. And then I wanted to distort. I didn't only wanted to distort, I wanted to pull in stories. And when the stories came into this portrait, there was a distortion automatically. And the distortion was a distortion which coexists. I mean, hypothetically speaking, there are several things going along when me and you are talking. So if I want to paint someday that me and you are talking, and I don't know you personally, I mean, in the name of a portrait or an image, and you don't know me, then there are also certain things which are also doing their job now. So it's like infusing everything together and seeing what to be there and what to be not and edit it, and then come up to a painting. That gave me this kind of imagery where numbers were loaded a bit. It was a phase of mine where I was drawing with numbers and all. And I wanted to connect a lot of things to these numbers, I mean, all equals to 1 equals to 0, a romantic kind of idea. So, I mean, all inside a mass is mass is you, connecting to a few folk songs from Bengal, this traditional baul songs from Bengal. There are certain many influences together, and we live in a conjunction where there are many. So the image was heavy with information together. So those brought me abstraction. I mean, not really acute abstraction, romantically speaking, but more of a figurative abstraction, where there are a lot of narrations together and a hybrid of an imagery. The hybrid that we are now, the hybrid which allows us to be traditionally focused, at sometimes going towards the root. At the same time, we call Western values to be the thing that is to be projected with. And at the same time, we are not very in-depth into the tradition, but we have a kind of conjunction there. We are a hybrid society, as a society, as an individual. So these things led me to drawing portraits, and those portraits was like this.
Actually, that naturally puts me in the next question, which I've been like asked, like dying to ask a lot of painters. Like when a painter like now that I know the story behind these abstract faces, uh, when you are actually understanding a painter and his work, do you need to know more about the painter and what goes into it? Otherwise, looking at simply the artwork doesn't really express everything what you want to say, right? So what's the process? Yeah. So what is the process while looking at a painting? Also, you have to follow a particular painter. What is ideal way to go about enjoying a painting or enjoying some artworks?
So understanding a painter, I mean, that's already an artwork by itself, I would say. I It's already artwork. I am a simple painter, sir. Please, I mean, ignore if I talk too much. But I mean, understanding a painter is already a process. I mean, it is too complex to understand what a painter does. Not a painter as foolish as me, but painters like Francis Bacon, painters like Shailaja Kanti Mukherjee, painters like Vinod Bihari Mukherjee, and all. I mean, they could have painted a totally well picture, but that might have lacked passion. That might have lacked certain other forms, which we get to understand when we open up layers and we constantly observe it, and then after a certain point we practice it, and the practice leads your own expression to a certain extent. you know, then you kind of open up the layers of why this certain person is going for this kind of an imagery and why this person is so very excited when he applies certain kind of paint on this canvas, and why does this artist ultimately land up tearing and ultimately lands up doing an abstract imagery when he was a figurative painter before. So there are several explanations of certain things, and that opens up. It doesn't narrow down. So it is not always that there is a certain one point meaning of a certain imagery. So the imagery can be one, but the explanation can be different, and that is, I feel, is democratic, and that is what is fun. So it's a process.
No, but yeah, but like say suppose your work is exhibited in an art gallery, and there are say 5 to 6 paintings, or probably you have a solo show. So there is obviously a thread which connects all the paintings. As a viewer, should I try and decipher or infer what that thread is, or is it a conscious effort from the painter itself to show that particular theme, or I need to do research about that particular painter and then get into looking at his work?
Not really, I mean, there is a striking similarity. The image might be different, but you cannot, basically what I mean, when you sing or when you dance or when you paint, you basically show what your attitude is. And that is the connect to a very basic level. I'm not being judgmental. I mean, that is what you show. If somebody has a very fancy attitude, towards life, or a naive one, then he is going to do a naive work, which might look only beautiful but not beyond. And there can be someone who is going through a lot of things together, and his paintings might be layered and land up to be abstract, without any figuration, without any real narrative. It might land up to a lyrical quality, and the whole show should be treated that way. It's very closer to you then. So we should be easy and not being able to kind of appreciate only what the beauty quote for you. I mean, it should be more explored.
Cool. Actually, that puts me. I'm just feeling a lot more curious to know you also as a person and know your work. So this is like just one another random question which I have that um, I've seen some of your work which you had sent me, and there is no sense of proportion really because it is abstract. So even in abstract paintings, should there be a sense of proportion when you are doing a figurative kind of a painting?
Well, I'm not acutely abstract, I would say. I mean, I cannot. I'm not a text-oriented person. I don't know exact term of it, but I'm not really an abstractionist, I would say, because I am not that spiritual. I'm not that spiritual at all. I mean, I'm very, very much into pop. I'm very much into tunes like people like now, in a way. I mean, we are jumbled, we are hybrid. I would call my images to be hybrid in a way, but not really juxtaposition of several forms together. That gives you an abstract feeling, but the abstraction exists. The abstraction is a reality. So it is that abstraction which I refer to, which doesn't have a proportion, doesn't have a balance. I mean, socially speaking.
Correct, correct. And then what goes into, like, say, suppose you paint a something, and there are a lot of instances where you have drawn on walls of huts in small villages and different places.
Yeah, that was the last project. Yeah, that was the last project that I did. It's Vidasat Art publication, a small publication that sprouted in Bengal, and Vidasat Art is a support that I also have. It's led by Ganesh Singh, Partho Roy, and all. So these people, they have archived and brought in a lot of. It's a recent project that I'm involved in. So this project deals with researching and re-evaluating how the 1942 movement of Do and Die, or revisiting 42, or the speech that Mahatma Gandhi gave, and what are the effects, and what were the local stories. Because we know the grander stories of it, but it was the leadership that spoke, and the leadership was in jail, and the leadership was not there when it happened, when things happened locally. So it was a project that it was a collaborative, I would say, with a lot of my friends together, and I am kind of the street painter guy, a loose guy, so I was involved in this. And painting in the traditional style, I collaborated a few times before also with the traditional kind of mural painting that exists in India, that exists in Bengal, especially with the tribes, specifically in the village, in the rural hemisphere, where they paint with very normally calcium as white and charcoal grinded and layered with cow dung, which is black. So, they look beautiful. They have geometry in it. They have figuration in it. There is abstraction in it. So then again, I had a training beyond my training in Government College of Art and Craft, which were in these places, where I really understood from where I am and what kind of khichdi do I am able to produce, and what kind of hodgepodge of khichdi is going around in my own nexus, in my own world of this 5.7 feet figure. So this project that you are referring to, which I painted on the hearts and all, it was in Birbhum. It's a place called Rupur, and there was certain stories which led me to this imagery, which were very local. When the world was fighting and when the plane was going over as for the World War II, for the British Army over India, and when the radio has said a blackout and all, so then the freedom movement was also going on, you know, non-cooperation to 1940 do or die movements. And there were certain local stories which was like excavated before I did this mural. So those movements literally doesn't speak of non-violence. It counters. There are certain evidences, one of which is in Tomluk. I mean, so there are several instances where things were like burned out, and the tolerance level was really low. It was beyond tolerance, so people revolted back, and there were violence also. It was not only non-violence that was involved in the whole process.
But who comes up with these concepts also to, like, let's go and paint a village, or let's go and have some paintings on the road? Like, what triggers these?
Very basically, it's basically that certain times when what my initiation, I can speak about that. My initiation, I mean, going public outdoors, it was not only about beautification. It was not only about decoration. It was not only about commenting or communicating to a public with a very beautiful face. And I was very happy painting in my studio. I mean, I have seen certain ups and downs in Bengal. I've seen the socialist movement fail. I've seen there are kind of a bit social but right-wing movement sparring up and taking over as 100%. And then at certain point of time, there was like a thing called Sharuda and a scam which led up, and where I was not involved at all. I mean, I didn't even spend a penny on it. But I've seen people like grump on it. I've seen Dunlop factory which was producing this tire. I used to live in Bandel, so I've seen this Dunlop factory where the factory compound used to look beautiful and people were good. There was a happy atmosphere, get fail. And today, if I talk about after 15, 20 years of seeing it, it's completely taken over by nature back again, where every house, every brick has been sold and the whole factory has failed. And Bengal has seen a lot of it. So in this context, I didn't even react, but in this position where this name Sharoda came in, I did paint a figure like Hanuman. I mean, not Hanuman in that extent. I mean, only the chest cheering part of Hanuman. It was me standing, and there was the Sharoda, which is the name of a motherly figure, the wife of Ramakrishna. Then over it, I did write, regret nothing. I mean, every people were looted with money, with a certain scam, which kind of evaporated on a certain night. And people used to invest money on it, like a chit fund scam, chit fund thinking. So I wanted to communicate and say, regret nothing. I mean, not a consolation also. I wanted to see how people react to it. I mean, the way I was pasting these posters, not really square posters, but shape-cut posters, 5, 6, 7 of them, in certain places in the city. Then I had reactions, and those reactions were more eye-opener to me. Some people wanted to keep it, some people wanted to convey something to it. So there was an initial point where the whole dialogue was open, which was always silent. So that made me do this first poster campaign, and then I wanted to see how this poster in the imagination, I mean the imagery. Imagery was introduced, I mean influenced by the circus posters that we have all around India and also in Bengal, which looks very bright and also stands apart in this digital age, I would say, when there are flex and banners and super fine things. But these old school stenciled and lithographical posters still are alive. When there is winter, you can see them around. The circus posters with funny imagery and the kind of very loose draftsmanship. And those draftsmanship are, I would say, if you can see it beyond the badness of it, I mean, it looks like a bit like Kish. At the same time, it is not really European, it is not Indian, and that can connect to the era when the Europeans were trying to treat us with or shape us from the folk that we were into a European draftsman, skilled, qualified person. Those kind of situations lead me to this kind of imagery. And those influences are there on those posters. And then how do you live and how do you coexist and how your image can stand up and stay for some time and get eroded also, not really stay there for long. So there might be people who can like tear it off or like spit on it and let it coexist for some time with these digital posters alongside. So that was my journey of seeing things as a visual draftsman. So that made me to go public. And at the same time, then what is public actually? So the moment I am being trained as a Western person, I mean Western drawing scaled craftsmanship of representing Kedar as Kedar photographically, with the highlight in the same place, and exactly that is Kedar, I can identify. But the folk art of India, they speak more about not the individual, but about the totality of it, the mass. You see the worldly paintings for reference, as they always dance so together. And in the contrast, you speak about a very local rock band who wants to cry off and say, I was like lost, so it's individualism. So so those people who wanted to draw a huge mass of people, they even do, in South India it does prevail and it's very evident even in the city. I have a neighbor who is from south of India and he does this floor alpana or floor decoration every day in the morning in a cemented pavement that she has. These habits are also there in the rural part of Bengal. So the moment I came up with it and I realized that she is also painting and I am also painting. I am painting a banyan tree and that looks like a photograph with pencil, and she is painting it so loose. That has a quality to it, and it is living for so long. How do I meld this thing two things together? And nothing is folk and nothing is contemporary, and nothing is design, nothing is abstract, nothing is real. So they also paint their walls, and that has a medium involved to it. How do I handle that medium, and how do I create an imagery that can involve their social structure as well, and how do I work with them? So these efforts came along my process, and not initiated by anyone but self, and mixing with people, trying to learn to cook, and then land up doing a mural on their house the next day, and listening to songs, and the songs get improvised. A bit complex, Kedar. But yeah, that was a process, and that ends up very simply saying that I wanted to paint there, and that was the reason of painting it, and that was the reason we had a wonderful time. We shared a wonderful time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am actually brainwashed with two keywords. Definitely, one is we live in a hybrid society, and let's all coexist together. I think these are the two key takeaways from my side, at least. I think, yeah, this is a good note to end this. Obviously, there's lots more to chat about and talk about art, know Kolkata in general. So thank you, Sumantra, for giving us your time.
Thank you so much, Kedar.
Yeah, and it was lovely talking to you, and I hope to have you again on audio again.
Thank you so much, Kedar.
Thank you.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.